I think I can actually pause this. All right, so I will be back after Fastlane is over to give you my recap, and hopefully it's a good show. This is the last show before WrestleMania, so some good impressions need to be made, and we'll just go from there. So I will talk to you guys. I will talk to you guys in just a little over 3 hours, 3 or 4 hours. Okay, so hang tight. All right, guys. That was a rather interesting show, Fastlane. If some of you didn't catch it, a lot of swerves. We're in this, so let's just get right to the recap. Of course, the pre-show, you had the New Day of Xavier Woods and Big E take on Nakamura and Rusev. Not really. I didn't catch much of that match because it was in progress because I was, doing this. But Woods and Big E end up getting the win. It was revealed earlier that the McMahons wanted to speak to Kofi about the event tonight. With them playing on that Kofi's going to be added to the title match. So the first match, of course, was the SmackDown Tag Team Champions, the Usos defending against Shane McMahon and The Miz. The event was in Cleveland, so The Miz was, just incredibly over with the crowd. I don't know if anybody's noticed this really, but it started last month at the Elimination Chamber, and it continued tonight. The Miz has been adding some moves into his repertoire. Last month we saw him do a springboard double axe handle, and we saw him do that again tonight. And then we also saw him do something he's never done, and that was do a dive off the top rope onto both Usos. But in the end, he was trying to do another thing he's never done, and it was a frog splash. But Uso got, one of the Usos, Jay, got his knees up and rolled Miz up for the win. But that's not the story here. At the end of the match, Miz is all disheartened and heartbroken. Shane's assuring him it's okay. And then it happened. Shane McMahon turned heel. He attacked the Miz right in front of the Miz's father. I believe it's Miz's stepfather, George Mizanin. And at one point, I don't know if this was part of the story or whatnot, but Shane grabbed George Mizanin by the face and then shoved him back into the crowd. And I don't know if that was part of the plan or if that was a complete shoot, but it ended with Shane, locking in a triangle on Miz, making him pass out. So, Shane McMahon turns heel, and the Miz and Shane, the co-besties tag team are no more, and I have a feeling we're going to see that match at WrestleMania. Elias then came and started singing about the Miz, a song. He sang a song insulting the Miz and the city of Cleveland, and he even got in a LeBron James reference about L.A., going to L.A. and visiting his brother LeBron. But look what the Lakers have done with LeBron. They're not even in playoff contention this year. But moving on. Next up, we had the SmackDown Women's Championship. Mandy Rose with Sonya Deville challenging Asuka. Asuka. I don't know. How do you pronounce it? Will somebody please let me know how you pronounce this? It was a basic women's title match. At one point, towards the end, Sonya Deville lifts the ring skirt up and pulls out a kendo stick. But the apron was still up in the ring. So as Mandy Rose was thrown into the ropes, she slipped, and Asuka kicked her right in the face. And the kick, when they showed it in slow-mo, just looked absolutely brutal. And, after the match, a distraught Sonya Deville is trying to explain that, she didn't mean it. And Mandy Rose just didn't want anything to do with it. We'll see what that story, how that story progresses throughout between now and WrestleMania. And, by the way, WrestleMania is exactly 4 weeks from today. We are in the home stretch for WrestleMania. So we go backstage with Kofi. He said he's been waiting an hour. The rest of the New Day come up. They barge into the McMahon family office. It's Vince on the phone. Vince says he's been waiting for Kofi for an hour. And Kofi's like, well, I've been waiting for you for an hour. So it was, Big E told Vince that he should make the championship match a triple threat. And Vince decides, okay, we'll do it. And in fact, that match is next, and the New Day are barred from ringside. So, everybody's, the announcers, the crowd, even is all excited that Kofi Kingston's finally going to get his, championship opportunity. And it was not meant to be. It ended up being a 2-on-1 handicap match. Sheamus and Cesaro versus Kofi Kingston, and that went about as well as you think. The bar just absolutely, it was just so boring. The crowd even started chanting, "This is boring." And finally, they just put the crowd out of its misery and won the match. The story here being that Kofi Kingston probably is going to get the WrestleMania title shot. So we'll just keep that. We'll just play that by ear over the next 4 weeks of TV. We've got Monday Night Raw and we've got Friday Night SmackDown. And of course, we've got NXT coming. NXT's. That was another big news item I forgot to mention today. Earlier today, when I was mentioning in the new, the happenings, the NXT Championship is in lingo right now. Tommaso Ciampa just underwent neck surgery earlier this past week, and he is out for an indefinite period of time, maybe up to 6 to 8 months is what they're saying. So that's going to be a big, a big monkey wrench into the plans for NXT Takeover New York. Who's going to win? Who's going to face Champ? Who's going to face for the title? Some obvious choices would be Johnny Gargano. Who else would make a good, an opponent for Johnny Gargano? I mean, we can assume that it's going to be Velveteen Dream and Matt Riddle for the North American Championship. Why not Adam Cole? Let Adam Cole, face Gargano. Let's see, probably two of the best independent workers that have come around, in the past 10 years. So, but, we won't know until that, gets to be around that time. And so anyways, after this 2-on-1 handicap, we had the triple threat for the Raw Tag Team titles. The Revival, the champions, against Bobby Roode and Chad Gable, and versus Ricochet and Aleister Black. And you can say what you want about, either of these teams. I mean, hell, Bobby Roode's, he's over 40, and he's still performing like this. Chad Gable, he will be a major player. He's only been doing this for about 3 years. And just look at, where he's progressed. He's already been a tag champion on SmackDown with Jason Jordan, and he's been a tag team champion with Bobby Roode. Ricochet and Aleister Black, I can't begin to tell you how much, how much I am, impressed by these guys. I've been following these guys for so many years. The Revival, they came up from NXT. They debuted the night after a WrestleMania a couple years ago, and it seemed like they weren't, they couldn't find their footing, kind of like the Ascension. The Ascension debuted 3 years ago, the night after I think it was after a WrestleMania or after the Royal Rumble, and they have yet to really find their place on the main roster. And they've been on SmackDown Live, they've been on Raw. I think it's going to be a matter of time before they're gone, because they really haven't done much. I mean, they were a dominant team in NXT when NXT became the developmental territory, and now they're just nothing. But in the end, Ricochet did his dive where he jumps over the ring post and took out Bobby Roode. But the story here was that Chad Gable tagged Ricochet as he was in flight. So the Revival hit Gable with the Shatter Machine, and the Revival retained the title. After the match, Bobby Roode attacks the Revival, gives one the glorious DDT. Aleister Black came in, gives the Black Mass on Dash Wilder. He actually gave it to Bobby Roode. And Ricochet plants Wilder in the corner, and then he gets the 630. Now, if you've never seen a 630 before, it's something to behold. Think of a 450 splash, and then add another rotation onto it. And then we had an unadvertised match. Our second unadvertised match, because I was under the impression that it was going to be Rey Mysterio versus Andrade, but we had a fatal four-way for the United States Championship. Samoa Joe, the new champ, he won the title on SmackDown this past week, in a rematch versus Rey Mysterio, Andrade, and R-Truth. A lot of fun, fun sequences in here, and with R-Truth did an homage to John Cena with the 5-knuckle shuffle on Samoa Joe. The end comes when Mysterio hits a 619. He goes for the splash, but Joe moves, and then Joe locks him in the Coquina clutch, and Mysterio passed out. There was no tap out. He just passed out. So, for being 44 years old, Rey Mysterio, he just defies age. He's kind of like Goldust. I mean, Goldust is pushing 50, and he, if you see him, he looks better than ever. And if, they introduced Beth Phoenix for the next match, which is the Women's Tag Team Championship match. The Boston Hug Connection taking on Nia Jax and Tamina. And it was a pretty cookie cutter type match. The big power bruisers, dominating the smaller champions until a mistake is made. And then the champs, win the match. But at the end of the match is the story here. Nia and Tamina attacked Sasha and Bayley, and they toss them both to the outside. Tamina gives Bayley a super kick, and then Nia tosses Banks literally over the announce table onto the floor at the feet of the announcers. Well, Beth Phoenix left the commentary position, and she gets right in Nia Jax's face, and they're arguing back and forth. And then finally, Beth throws a forearm, nails Tamina with a forearm, and then she's just attacked from behind by Nia. At one point, there was a couple of botches, and I'm sure they'll end up on Botchamania. If you've never seen Botchamania, please check it out on YouTube. It is hilarious. It shows all the mistakes and bad moves that are made in wrestling. At as Nia was running the ropes to